Agreement is reached to turn over the CIS army hostages taken in Armenia. Russia's battalion in the UN forces heads for Yugoslavia. Eduard Shevardnadze is head of the new Georgian government body, the State Council. Results of primary elections in the United States. In England, the date is announced for the new parliamentary elections. Galina Vishnevskaya opens a fund to help retired artists. Good evening. Those are today's news headlines. Today, the media is focusing its attention on whether the hostages would be released. As you know, yesterday, a group of CIS Army officers was captured in Armenia. Today, various sides reached agreement to free the hostages. At noon, a group of officers left for Artik, representing the Coordinating Council of the Officer Corps, led by Major General Stolyarov. They will make arrangements for hostages' return. We still expect the hostages to be released. At least we have no contrary information yet. But we have received a report from the press conference in Yerevan. As the first deputy prosecutor of Armenia said at the press conference, the incident is being investigated both by him and the military procurator. But according to him, the media have been jumping to conclusions out of political ambitions. The investigators know only one thing for sure. Agreement has been reached between the groups attempting to seize weapons and some members of the unit's commanders. Reports that 10 hostages were taken with the direct participation of local authorities are being strongly denied here. As it was reported to journalists, all 10 hostages are safe, and it appears that they will be turned over today to representatives of the Committee of Soldiers' Mothers who have arrived in Yerevan and of the Army Coordinating Council of Officers. We remind you that the position of the leadership of the Unified Armed Forces of the CIS, expressed yesterday by Major General Stolyarov, is that the hostages were seized by local authorities and were victims of intergovernment and interethnic disputes. The complex political situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan has forced the CIS armed forces to abandon their mission that they tried to fulfill there. Nonetheless, or perhaps despite this situation, for the first time, blue armbands were donned by Russian troops today. They're heading from Ryazan to Yugoslavia. According to all evidence, this is being done to emphasize Russia's foreign policy activities in support of peace. These boys have the fate to be the first from our army to join the international forces to keep peace in Yugoslavia. They begin their long journey to Yugoslavia from here in Ryazan. They are soldiers, NCOs, and officers, 900 people in all. Long-suffering Yugoslavia awaits them. They will be deployed in crisis areas in an attempt to stop the civil war and restore order. For now, they are undergoing tough training exercises, including a 500-kilometer march with the technical equipment of the battalion. When the battalion commander gives the order, they will begin their journey. They completed training today with today's march. The Marine Battalion will join the UN forces. We are prepared to fulfill our mission. We are awaiting orders to move to the location where we will carry out our orders. The Marine Battalion consists of volunteers. There are Russians in the battalion, conscripted in Russia. Russia will be one of 10 UN battalions on the peace mission in Yugoslavia. Among the military, there is no unanimous opinion on this activity. The Coordinating Council of Officer Corps of the CIS Unified Armed Forces is talking about other things today, however. The Army has too many problems. Although the Army's problems were discussed at the last Commonwealth Heads of State meeting, the military believes that insufficient attention is being paid to the military, according to Council members. The situation of the military is worsening. Attempts are being made to draw the Army into inter-ethnic conflicts. Various means are being used to try to seize weapons. There are anticipated reductions in troop levels. We expect a mass of homelessness and unemployed people. These issues should be considered at the Commonwealth Heads of State meeting at Kiev, the military officers believe. Moscow Mayor Gavril Popov says he shares the concerns of the military. Among the measures taken by the mayor for social protection of the officers, he said that in the next 2 years, apartments will be found in Moscow for 10,000 military personnel. He also plans to allocate land for the construction of cottages. Popov's report to the officers that Eduard Shevardnadze had told him by telephone of measures being taken in Georgia sounded unbelievable. Shevardnadze asked on behalf of the State Council of Georgia that the CIS army units not be withdrawn from Georgia. He declared also that Georgia would do everything necessary to provide for military personnel stationed there. Tomorrow, the meeting will continue its work. The results of a poll taken by the CIS Military Center for Social Research show that among soldiers, NCOs, and officers, military personnel are increasingly being divided among political lines. The poll further shows that the fears of some politicians of the danger of a military coup are not well founded. 90% of those polled believe the military should not govern the country. They give preference to professional politicians, economists, and managers. This point of view could have great meaning during the discussion over the March 17th planned events by several USSR People's Deputies. This evening, this issue was discussed at a closed session of the Presidium of the Russian Supreme Soviet. Our correspondent nevertheless managed to get some information and is preparing a report. But first, a report on the work of the joint session of the Russian Supreme Soviet. Over 300 amendments were proposed to the law on corrective agreements. Representatives of labor collectives, business, trade unions, and the government participated in the revision of the law. Today, the Russian Parliament is discussing in detail the act on second reading. Today, the Russian Supreme Soviet adopted a declaration in connection with the decision of the Supreme Soviet of the Latvian Republic on the annexation of the city of Obren and 6 towns in Obren region. The territorial claims of Latvia toward Russia, the declaration states, are unfounded both from the political and historical points of view. Politically, this means an attempt to worsen relations between our two countries and undermine the principle of inviolability of existing borders, which is the basis of the system of collective security and cooperation in Europe. One more episode from the Parliament's work today. The capture of 10 CIS officers in Nagorno-Karabakh provoked the concern of deputies. This morning they decided to prepare a message to the Armenian president, the Supreme Soviets of those republics, and the heads of Commonwealth states. However, the deputies could not reach a unanimous opinion on the issue, and the discussion was postponed till tomorrow. But the decision cannot wait. Time cannot wait. We are talking about human lives. Nezavisimaya Gazeta newspaper has a striking headline today: the 6th Congress of People's Deputies of the USSR. The next coup or a necessity. The powers are in turmoil. They are prepared to use force, but are afraid of high casualties. End quote. This appears to be somewhat exaggerated, but the tough decision had to be made because the course of future events depends greatly upon it. After the evening parliamentary session today, the Russian Supreme Soviet's Presidium met to consider the intentions of several USSR People's Deputies to recreate the structures of the former Soviet Union. The Presidium of the Supreme Soviet concluded, quote, "The renewal of activities of any organization of the former Soviet Union on the territory of Russia is an encroachment on the state sovereignty of the Russian Federation and is inconsistent with the status of an independent state," unquote. The Russian Federation General Procurator was asked to demand that the deputies planning the event on March 17th fully obey the laws of the Russian Federation and cease the illegal attempt to recreate the structures of the former USSR. the Parliament's Presidium ordered the Russian government, the Moscow City Council, and the mayor to take measures to prevent the meeting of the so-called Congress of People's Deputies of the USSR, both in the capital and on the entire territory of the Russian Federation. The Rio press agency reports that at a press conference today, a member of the Congress's organizing commission, Alexander Kraiko, said that the Congress will open March 17th at 9 a.m. in Moscow. He refused to reveal the specific location of the event. Brief news from the teletype today. In Kuzbas, the general strike planned for today will not be held. This action has been postponed after the Russian government agreed to begin a dialogue. It became known that the Russian Federation's Vice Premier, Alexander Shokhin, will lead the official delegation leaving for Kuzbas tomorrow to consider the social-economic crisis there. A meeting of the Association of Autonomous Units in Russia, attended by the chairman of the Council of Nationalities, Ramazan Abdulatif, began today in Khanty-Mantinsk. They will discuss the draft federation treaty. Today was a holiday in Lithuania today. The country